Welcome back to another episode of Junkovich Jr. Time to get some service done on this square body. Transmission fluid service time and filter. So we got about 36,000 miles on the truck since this thing's been, together from the get-go. And it's a new transmission build 36,000 miles ago. So I know you can go further than that on your transmission fluid, but you know what? It's time to get this thing ready because we're going to LS Fest, Texas in June. So a few weeks out, we're going to be headed out there. Got to make sure this truck's 100%. So we got a few parts to upgrade here. First and foremost, going with a Wix filter. You know I'm a Wix man, made in USA kind of stuff, and that's what we're sticking with there. But we're upgrading the transmission pan. Went with a Moroso part number 42025, made in USA again. And main reason, it has a factory steel pan on the truck now, but the worst part about the whole process is there's no drain plug, so it's guaranteed to make a mess, and I'm just not a fan of that. So Moroso's stepped it up a notch. They've got a O-ring sealed plug here for a drain, and they actually put in a bung that already has a plug in it for a temperature sending unit if we ever decide to put a gauge in this truck. So we're going to climb under the truck, get that factory one off there, get this installed, fresh gasket, and we're going with Lucas semi-synthetic automatic transmission fluid, Sure Shift as they call it. So even though it says designed for racing applications, that's a little bit contradicting in my mind, because one of the things that the Sure Shift is advertised as is being a smooth shifting fluid. They do have some more aggressive ones, but we don't need that. We're not looking for a drag race only kind of fluid that's going to really, bang when it shifts gears like a Type F. That's a real aggressive fluid. This is a daily driver, occasional playing around with it. So I want it to be as smooth as possible. And going all the way out to Texas from Florida and back, looking for a smooth ride. So that's what we're going with. Let's climb under this truck, get the factory fluid out, and start working. Okay, everyone, I'm going to commit a sin on this factory pan. I know it's going to make some people mad, but that's okay because we're getting rid of this transmission pan, and it's not their truck, so they'll just have to deal with it. And the new one is going to replace it, obviously, and if we ever need to fix this one for whatever reason, we can always weld it up. But rather than taking all the bolts loose and making a gigantic mess like I know it will and have this stuff everywhere, I'm drilling a hole in it. It's a practical solution to me. Like I said, we can always weld it up later if we need to. Try to get this drain pan under here. All I'm trying to do is decrease the mess, but in my life, sometimes that makes it worse. Let's find out. There we go. Yes, it breaks my heart to drill a hole in a perfectly good transmission pan like that, especially a factory GM one. As we know, they are good quality stuff, but just the most practical thing to do in my situation. So we're gonna let that drain out. Fluid doesn't look bad at all. Smells just like transmission fluid. It's not very dark, so that's a good sign. The transmission's working perfectly fine. Once we get the pan down, we can look inside it and make sure there's nothing major, going on inside, any signs of wear. Okay, so here's the part where we're probably still going to make a mess. Try and get these bolts out of here. I've only got a couple left in it. I took most of them out already so that it could drop down a little bit and drain. So I'm just going to hold it in place now. Get these out of here. I think that was all I had. Nope, there's one in the front. And it's free. And there it is, not as messy as I thought. Still some dripping and draining. Looks really clean inside. Also, let me get the light here so you can see. The pan itself looks clean. No major hunks of debris that I can see going on in there. Tip it over here. Magnets look clean. Yeah, I don't see anything going on inside there. Nothing to be concerned with. Now, the factory pans, they have these magnets stuck to the bottom of them to catch any debris. The Moroso one has a magnetic drain plug, so not quite as big of a magnet, but I don't think that we need it. So I'm gonna get all this stuff wiped off here and dry it up, ready for that new gasket and pan to go on. And to my knowledge, this filter is just gonna drop down out of that rubber grommet bushing that it has in the front, like that. Now, the gasket slash O-ring did not come off with that, so we need to make sure to get that out so that our new one has a place to go in. It's already installed on here. Another thing that we want to do, you don't want to use any kind of grease, because that wouldn't be a wise thing on the transmission, but use some of that transmission fluid that's dripping down to lubricate that O-ring there, and then that's ready to go in. I'm going to set this aside so we can get that bushing out of there. Well, it's a little warm and slippery. I'm going to go get a pick so I can get it out. Okay, so the old filter and O-ring is out of there. Got it out with a pick. Just wiping down this sealing flange here. Make sure it's nice and clean and dry. We don't need any fluid on the gasket. And I don't know, just wiping down some of these drips here that keep driving me crazy as it sits. Gonna get this drain pan, an old transmission pan, out of the way. Open up our towel here so that we don't trash everything, because it's still got a few drips. Okay, so we've got our ATF already rubbed down on that O-ring. Now we can slide it right up in there, just like that. It's fully seated in there. Now it's ready for the pan. Moroso actually sends you shiny, nice new bolts with these pans too. I really like that. It's the little things that satisfy me, instead of having to reuse the old bolts. Okay, grab us two of them here and our pan. Get this gasket situated. Hole for the transmission temp at the front of the pan. I guess depending on the angle, you might be able to drain more fluid out that way. I'm not sure, but either way, it looks good to me. So get a couple bolts started here, then we can carry on with the rest of them while these two hold everything in place, including the gasket. Make sure that gasket doesn't slip out of your bolt hole alignment there. You'll be in trouble. You'll be going through this process once again. Now, 12 foot-pounds is the spec that we're going to go to on this pan, but just to run these bolts up, I'm going to use the ratchet and just go around it in a crisscross style pattern so that we don't get one side snug and the other one hanging down. Okay, so those are all snug. Like I said, we're going 12 foot-pounds, also known as 144 inch-pounds if you're using an inch-pound torque wrench. You don't have to. A lot of people might like to do it till their elbow clicks kind of thing. I'd rather have it as accurate as we can get it. So I'm gonna go through all these and get a nice little click out of it there, and we know we're good. And I'm gonna do the same. Oops, I missed one. I'm gonna stick with the crisscross pattern while we're torquing it as well. And for example, when I miss one like that, now I can, after they're all torqued, I can go back through and go around in a circular pattern just to check them all so that I know I haven't missed any. And it makes life a little easier. You kind of don't, you know, lose track of where you're at when you're doing it that way. So gonna get all these torqued down. We'll move on to the top side. Okay, so we got our panel torqued down, and one thing I forgot to do before I go up to the top side is I wanted to double check the plug for a sending unit and the drain plug just to make sure they're tight. Not that I don't trust Moroso, but you never know. I wanted to check those, so they're good and snug. Everything looks good down here. The fit and finish is really nice on this pan. I like it a lot. It's a shame it's not going to be seen more. Hopefully no one ever sees it, but that's not the point. We wanted a nice quality pan that's not going to leak with the drain plug to make service intervals easier in the future, and the aluminum's probably going to dissipate a little more heat, so it's a win-win. Let's go to the top side and fill her up. So we're going to put about 6 quarts in here to start with. Then we can crank the truck up, back it down off the ramps, get it on level ground, run it through the gears, you know, cycle the fluid through everything, check it again, and add to it as necessary. I don't see any blood of the transmission leaking out on the floor there, so I'd say that's a success as far as not having any leaks. Good quality stuff. I feel really good about the install that we just did. I'm going to take this thing down the road. I checked the fluid. It's right at the full mark for now, but I want to drive it, you know, get everything circulating and get a little temperature in it as well. Double check the fluid when I get back. So far so good. I like it. Really good quality Moroso pan. Love it. Always buy that made in USA stuff when you can. So I'm going over this truck with a fine tooth comb. Next couple weeks, got to go grease the front end, you know, U-joints, check air and tires, adjust real brakes, all that little stuff, because this thing's going all the way to Texas. It's going to be about a 3,000 mile round trip for us, so I'm really looking forward to that. Thanks for watching Junk Whiff Jr. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and we will see you next time.